Okay, so the natural numbers begin with 1 and then go on forever. And with those numbers, we can do lots of things. But before we do that, we need to talk about a few other definitions. And the first one is we need to talk about something called a factor. A factor simply means any natural number that will divide evenly into a given number. Okay, so it's a natural number, so coming from that set of natural numbers, and it will divide evenly into any given number. So if I give you a particular number, then you can as long as it divides evenly into it. So for example, if you think of the number 24, 24 will divide by lots of different numbers, right? 2 goes into it, 6 goes into it, 8 goes into it, etc. Right? So all of those are factors of 24. And we know that they're factors because they divide evenly into a number. So we find factors in order by using division, okay? So what I want to talk to you about is how that you can find all of the factors of a number. To find every factor of a number, first, start with 1 and the number itself. Because remember that the number 1 divides evenly into everything. I'm just going to get an example going on over here. Let's just say we have the number 48, and we want to do all of the factors of 48. Well, I know that 1 goes into it 48 times. And notice how I've written them side by side there. And the reason you do that is because factors always come in pairs. The only way to get 48 with a 1 is to multiply 1 times 48. There's no other combination with 1 that would work. And so they're called factor pairs. Then try 2, 3, 4, etc. So you're just going to keep dividing by natural numbers. And here's the part that makes me crazy. You know that very few things like in math make me crazy. But you need to do them in order. Numbers are in order because that's the way you should use them. Okay? So do them in order. Don't jump around because if you do, you're going to miss some, right? So make sure that you do the division in order. So next we try 2. 2 goes into 48. How many times?
24.
24? Remember, this is still participation class, guys, so you're going to have to play with me. All right, 3 goes into it. Anybody remember how many times? I'm messing with you. I'll do that one for you. It's 3 and 16. 4 goes into it. How many times?
12.
12 times. Good. Will 5 go into it?
No.
No. Then 5 is not a factor of 48. How about 6?
Yes.
Yes. How many times?
8 times.
8 times. How about 7?
No.
No. And I know that I'm ready to stop. Okay. Stop when you get to a number that is already on your list. So after 7, what would be the next number I would try? What number comes after 7? 8, yeah. But I don't need to try 8 because it's already on my list. And that will always happen as long as you take the numbers in order. And that's especially helpful with numbers that are very large or numbers that have lots of factors. Now, when you're writing your list of factors, this is, for me, I'm perfectly happy with this as a list of factors. But when you see them listed, usually what happens is they put them in numerical order separated by commas. I'm not going to require that you do that. I would never count it wrong if you gave it to me like this as pairs of factors. But usually when you're looking at answers, they're going to give them to you as a list of factors with the numbers in order. So either one of these is perfectly acceptable. Okay? How's that look? Think you can find factors of numbers?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, the next things we're going to talk about is to find multiples of a number. Now, the first thing you need to know is that multiples are infinite. That means they go on forever and ever and ever and ever. So in other words, you cannot ever find every multiple of a number. Okay? And you're not going to need to. You're going to see when you're using multiples or finding multiples, there are specific uses for it. And so we'll be able to use those specific instances to tell us how far we need to go. But all you need to do... Yes?
So if someone said, like, can you find me the third multiple of 3, you'd just be like 3 times 3, right?
Exactly. Right. So to find multiples, simply multiply the number by each natural number and again, imagine this in order. Okay? So if I want to find multiples of 3, since you already said 3, we'll just do multiples of 3. Okay?
Will we get education perfect on this?
No, you're gonna have a thing on OneNote. So it's 1 times 3. Oops, sorry. 1 times 3, which is 3. 2 times 3, which is 6. 3 times 3, which is 9, etc. Right? Normally, you don't see the multiplication when you're listing multiples. You just do that in your head. So you'd see a list of multiples. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Then 9. But notice also that you don't even have to do multiplication if you think about it. What could you also do?
Count up in 3s.
Yeah, just count up in 3s or add 3 every time. Okay? Now, could I just stop here at 15?
No. Well, yes.
Well, I could stop, but is that all the multiples of 3?
No.
No, they go on infinitely, so what do I have to do in order to indicate that? Dot. Exactly. Don't you give me a list of multiples of a number without including that. Now, if they said up to 15, then you could stop there. But what you would do is you would put it in brackets. Oops, sorry. Thought I hit my eraser key. You would put it in brackets to give yourself a set of numbers. Okay? So they can give you limitations. They could tell you up to a certain number. All right? So again, always make sure they're in order and just multiply as you go. Now, just like, was that you, Poppy, that asked that question? About the 3? I thought I was getting very clever by listening, hearing, recognizing your voices. Oh, well. Here we go. So you're going to have some cases where you want to find a certain multiple. Find the largest multiple. And I'm going to do an easy one. Of 10 that is less than, 425. Okay? So in this case, I want the closest one I can get to 425 without going over. Well, that's really easy to do. All you need to do is take the number and divide it by the number you're finding multiples of. Okay? You could list all of the multiples of 10 until you found it, but it's much faster to simply do the division. And if you do the division, 10 goes into 40 4 times, which is 40. Bring down the 2. 10 goes into 25 2 times, which is 20. Bring down the 5. That means you've got a decimal, right? 10 goes, so I don't really care about anything after that. I'm only interested in the whole number part. So as soon as I start getting a decimal, then that means I can stop. So the largest multiple of 10 that is less than 425 is simply 10 times 42, or 420. Now again, I picked an easy one because I wanted you to be able to do the division very easily. It's easy to see that if it's a multiple of 10, it has to end in 0. So it would have been 420. So I picked an easy one on purpose. Okay? But if you're finding a multiple of a particular number up to a certain number, you can just find it by division. And then all you have to do is just multiply those two together to find the number you're looking for. Okay? Most of them aren't as easy to find as 10, but the process is the same. How does that look so far?
Good.
Okay. All right. One more thing to do then. Woohoo. We're going to look for what's called the lowest common multiple. Now, I know you've seen this before, and there are lots of methods and processes of ways to do this. And I'm going to show you later another one that is much more efficient. But for right now, they want you to do it by listing. So that's the way I want to see it. So, oops, not factors, by listing multiples. So to find the least common multiple or lowest common multiple, sorry, in America it's least common multiple, so you'll hear me say least a lot, but instead of lowest, y'all call it lowest, right? So if you have two numbers and you want to find the least common or lowest common multiple for them, just start listing multiples. Always remember that the smallest multiple of any number is itself, right? So we'll have 6 and 9. 6 times 2 gives me 12. 9 times 2 gives me 18. They don't match. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep listing multiples until I get a number that matches. So 6, 12, 18. What do you notice? Do I need to go any further? No. So the lowest common multiple for those two numbers is 18. So again, all you're going to do is simply list multiples until you get a match. Two numbers that are identical. Okay? And many times you're going to have to make your list longer than the list that I've made. These numbers, we found a multiple pretty quickly. But you will always find one, right? By simply making a list of multiples until you get a match. Okay. So that's our lesson for this class. So on your OneNote, you're going to do the lesson for week 1, day 1. Now, I think that was the way they were labeled in the other classes. I better check to make sure that's the way they're still labeled in this one. So I'm going to turn the recording off and then go back and pull up that OneNote, so bear with me for a moment.